So there comes a time in our lives where we stop asking what is wrong with us and we start asking what can we give to the world from our wisdom that we've created. And that's what I want to talk about in today's video. So if you're new to my channel, hello, my name is Elika. I'm a trusted advisor and an energy strategist for purpose-driven leaders who want to create so much more impact in the world. And you know that your energy is going to be important for you to do that. And this week has been absolutely perfect for me to talk about this video because I literally had a consultation yesterday where I had thought to myself ahead of time, there's something that I really want to transmute to people. And I had the exact client that had the same issue. She came to me feeling like she was broken and she needs another guide to fix her. And it's interesting because, one of the questions I always ask people is, what have you done so far? And I'm very clear by now, it's over a decade I've been working with people that most people that come to me, they have done a lot of work on themselves. And it can be very basic stuff. They've maybe worked with a nutritionist or a personal trainer, they've had some therapy, or they've paid for some cheap coaching. But by the time they've come to me, I feel that they're really ready to hear the truth and really ready to shift whatever it is that's stopping them to get to their next level of success, which is success in every area of their life and not just one part. And when I asked her the question of what have you done so far, she reeled off all of the work. And I don't just mean simple work, I mean really deep work. And so one of the things that I knew is this is a lady that has a lot of resources and a lot of tools in her kit that she can use. And one of the support that she needed was support in finances to take it to the next level. And what I had to say to her is that she could use me and I could help her and I could hold her in such a high level of accountability. But in me helping her, I sensed that I would be actually reenacting the limited belief that she had around not being sovereign. And this is what I want to talk to you about today. And there is a season that we're going through right now, just from an astrology point of view, that is very timely for what I'm talking about. And that is Chiron moving from Aries to Taurus. And those of you that are not into astrology or don't know what astrology is, just go with it. Just you can do no harm in knowing this insight. So Chiron was known in Greek mythology as the wounded healer. He was somebody that could heal others, but actually really struggled with his own wound. And just to simplify the story, so when it came to trying to heal himself, he had collected all of this wisdom in healing others, but wasn't able to heal his own wounds. So when we look at this big planetary shift that's happening, I think it's around, don't quote me if I'm wrong here, but I think it's around 40 years. But Chiron now moving from being in Aries, and I am a very typical Aries for those of you that are familiar with me and my work. Aries is a fire sign. Aries represents the I am statement. Aries is the first sign of the astrology zodiac. It represents this character that is very much about leading the way and doing whatever you really want, but really being about self-identity. So there's a lot around self-worth with Aries and level of confidence. So when Chiron is Chiron, the wounded healer, is in Aries, it's really about healing this element of identity, self-worth, who I am in the world. I mean, how many of us have asked ourselves that question? Who am I and how do I contribute? And if we haven't, that's deep, deep work that we all have to do as part of the hero's journey. Then Chiron moves into Taurus. Now, Taurus, and it's so interesting because my partner is Taurus, and it represents this area of beauty, luxury, nature, abundance. And so imagine now Chiron moves from this, you've got clarity of who you are, your worthiness, and now let's move into abundance, overflow, your connection to beauty, your ability to enjoy the finer things in life. And there couldn't be a timely moment because I know in my own practice and the people that I work with, I had made a decision last year that I cannot work with people that are still in survival mode. I have to work with people that understand they are sovereign and want to go crown to crown, want to go peer to peer in the next journey of what they want to expand in and contract in. Because I know I'm like that. Anytime I consult with a coach, a mentor, an advisor, I absolutely want to feel like I am accepted as good at what I already do, but want to be taken to the next level. I'm not going to them like I am in victim consciousness. Oh, pity me. Oh, look at all the things that's wrong with me, and can you help me to fix me? It's just not the consciousness that I resonate with anymore. And I believe that when I don't resonate with anyone, um, I cannot help them in that particular area. Whereas when I deeply resonate with, oh my gosh, you feel good, but inside of you that there is so much more, then I absolutely know I can take you there. I can pull up the mirror, I can show you, and I can really be your advisor in what are the resources, what are the tools, and what are the people. Is a big part of my work is providing people with a network of resources that you need to get to that next level. So I want to dive into this today, and I want to kind of split this into three parts. And the three parts are the journey that I think that we need to really see ourselves in now. And we can therefore use our energy so much more intentionally when we understand what phases we're moving through. So if I was to summarize these phases, it's moving from wounds to wisdom to wealth. So let's start with talking about what does it mean when we say wounds. So to me, we all have these soul wounds. In fact, whenever I start working with a client, one of the first things I want to identify is, are they clear on their soul wounds? Are they clear of the parts of themselves that were hurt in this lifetime, maybe even inherited from previous lifetimes, that they absolutely need to be aware of, so that when they show up, they can laugh about it. They can go, oh my God, it's this thing again. And, there is a beautiful book, and sorry, the name escapes me right now, but I know if you Google it or AI it, you will find it. And it's all about the core soul wounds. And there are 5 soul wounds in that book. But the most obvious ones that I see in my high achievers is rejection and abandonment. And they all show, our wounds show up in so many different ways, right? So when I think about my rejection wound, it was very early on as a child, trying to fit into white suburbia and just knowing that as a Black woman, I am so different. I cannot go to the swimming lessons in my private school education and not care about my hair in the same way as all the other girls can. I cannot, I've spoken about this before, but one of my real wounds was when I was told that I couldn't be Mark Owen in Take That. I couldn't play that role because I was Black. And it was the first time I figured that I couldn't have something because of the color of my skin. And we all have that. So that was really about my rejection wound. And then if I think about abandonment wound, and I can go through all the others, but if I think about abandonment, for me, I actually believe that I was abandoned from the moment I was born, because the moment I was born without a father. And so for me, that's an early soul abandonment, that you come into this life without the feminine and masculine in place. And so you have to recreate that in your life. Obviously, your parents, in my case, my mother, would try to recreate it, but life helps you to recreate the balance of those energies. And so when you understand your soul wounds, you can therefore go into life and understand that when you're triggered, when something deeply affects you, when you feel an emotional pull to something, you know that there is a part of that wound that is showing up for you to have access to deeper layers of healing. But there is a difference in consciousness when we are in this victim consciousness, this lower level of consciousness where we are being triggered and we cannot see that it is our own wound and that the outside environment is reflecting what's inside of us that is asking to be healed. And instead, we're blaming the external environment. He didn't say this, they didn't treat me this way, this happened to me, I didn't give enough time. And all of that is externally looking at that environment as wounding you, instead of understanding that the wound is within you and the outside world is just reflecting that so that you can go into that deeper layer of healing. So most people that I am working with, I actually got to say all the people that I'm working with have already identified those wounds. Yeah, maybe they haven't had it articulated in the way that I articulate it to my clients, so that's super clear that these are the wounds that they have. And maybe that they've worked with it, but they haven't gone as deep as they can with it. But you have to firstly identify that you have these wounds. So these wounds for me are the first journey. And, obviously I talk a lot about human design. So I'm a 6 line in human design. And those of you that have 6 lines, you know that those first 30 years are really about those wounds being created, those wounds being just mirrored in every moment, and just really you just feel like you're just living in those wounds. Those of you that are three lines, you know that at three lines always feel like there's this kind of like catastrophe that's happening as these like new experiences are showing up. So depending on your human design chart, you may relate to your wounds as this kind of long period of your life where you were in this trial and experimental phase, and that's where you were receiving the wounds and really learning from those wounds. So we now move into the second phase. And the second phase is really about how do we move from that wound to wisdom. So we acknowledge that we have gained a lot of insights from those wounds. So we have understood that the wisdom that we get is wisdom that is going to guide us so clearly into moving into what we want to do in this world. So if you have been rejected, you may find that instead of feeling like lots of people are not here to guide you and support you and allow you to be part of their community or their tribe, instead of feeling that way, you actually go, I have learned who understands my energy. I understand which communities I fit into. I understand which parts of me wants to be liked and loved, and therefore tries to put like certain elements of me up front in order to, be accepted by the tribe. You understand that, and therefore you become really clear on, I'm not doing that anymore, and instead I'm going to go where I'm loved. I have this phrase that I used it in a previous, I think I did a whole video around this phase of my life when I realized that you need to bloom where you blossom. And that is about finding environments that really nurture you. And in that nurturing, you really get access to the most highest expression of yourself, the part of you that is like really here to give to the world and understands that there are things that you previously saw as wounds that actually help you to have access to that part of you. So when I think about the wisdom, it's like you understand that without those wounds, you wouldn't be this person. So for me, for example, without feeling like I got rejected by not fitting into certain environments when I was younger, I wouldn't have this part of me that absolutely loves the underdog. Like if I go into a networking event or into a community, I tend to not speak to who I perceive is the popular person. I tend to go for the person that I think is either the lone wolf or there's something unique about that person that may separate them from other people. I literally just I don't try to mold myself into trying to be popular or go and speak to the popular people. I actually seek out those that are different. And that's because I want to celebrate the differences in people and not the similarities. In fact, I think this is why human design was one of the main areas that I threw myself into very early on in my advisory, because I wanted to actually celebrate people's differences and not highlight where they don't fit in or highlight what they perceive as not the highest expression of themselves. So this wisdom, that whatever your wounds have been, this wisdom that you've gained from that. So, take a moment to really think, what were the most painful experiences in my life? But what did I gain from it? And that is to say, what did I come to as a conclusion when I realized that this actually happened for me? So maybe it wasn't rejection for you. Maybe it was that relationship that broke down. But as a result of that broke down, in that moment, you may have felt abandoned. But after, you became more sovereign, you had better self-care, you went off and did something that you never thought was possible and built your confidence and your self-worth in a way that wasn't even possible for you before. But that was what came out of this wound. So when you reflect on this, this is where you have the wisdom. Now, this is one of my favorite bits. And I would say that most people that I work with, this is my starting place. It's getting that clarity on your wisdom and then taking you to that next level. So to me, that next level looks like this wisdom that I have gained from my own unique experience. This is now resources that I can see in the world that people need. So it's this morning I was listening to a lady, and I love her Instagram. She's called the poo queen. And of course, she's talking about how women, in which particularly she focuses on women, can poop better. So she has to be a specialist in the gut in order to work on that. And as she was talking, obviously, her own journey has been where there was such imbalance in her body that she went to functional medicine. And, I was the same route. I went through functional medicine as well. And they gave her all of these ailments. It cost her a lot. But what was missing from her, from that support, was the communication back and forth when she's trying to utilize the resources that was given to her. But she's got questions about it. Now, the whole point that I created a concierge was I realized that I spent hundreds and thousands on my own personal and professional growth. I have dealt with the best of the best practitioners trying to figure out who is the best person for every part of the physical energy, your mental energy, your emotional energy, your spirit and your purpose and your impact, everyone. And I'm like, whenever I was on that journey, I just didn't have that one person that was there to connect the dots for me. That was literally there saying, Elika, but this is connected to this bit. Elika, this is why the cortisol level is high. Elika, this is why the estrogen is showing up like this. Like, just somebody that was connecting all of those dots. And so that's why I created a concierge. I wanted to be that person, like a trusted concierge. I could think about where concierge comes from. It's that person that has all the resources that you need and pulls it together for you. And this is because this is the wisdom that I gained through my own journey. And in that journey, I learned how food was really medicine. So I gathered this expertise in my own journey of nutrition, and not mainstream nutrition, not Western nutrition, but I decided that for me in my own journey, it was very important to understand ancestral foods, like eating your traditional foods and knowing what they look like and how those foods could be your own medicine. And so, of course, when I opened my restaurant, there was a big push on everybody understanding that there were traditional foods that they each had, and that the cooking style and the preparation style could be different. And that was a big thing for me in nutrition. So that was a tool, a wisdom that I gained from my own journey in cleaning up my diet. Equally, when it came to how I worked out, I realized that I had this very high achievers way of working out, which was focused on high intensity. Like, you've got to be dripping with sweat, you've got to feel exhausted, you've got to be collapsing on the gym floor to feel like you've had a good workout. And when I realized that in my healing journey, my body was craving for stillness, my body was craving for relaxation, my body was craving for a slower type of movement. Then I moved talking about exercise to thinking about movement. And then when I looked at that, I looked at the ancient ways of movement were the ones that my body seemed to be responding well to. Things like yoga or Tai Chi, or even a lot of the nervous system regulation work that we do, like breath work, is pranayama, right? So they're all weaved around ancient wisdom. So I started to focus my conversations with my clients on how can we make sure you've got a movement practice versus an exercise practice. This was wisdom that I gained. When I looked at purpose, so the obvious missing thing for me was understanding how my wounds were shaping wisdom. But I needed a tool to be able to access that clearly, and that was human design. Because again, human design helped me to bridge ancient wisdom to modern science. And then I also had this tool that I could use immediately to be able to help my clients and to not just give them the information from human design, but to deeply look into their chart and see where there was so much wisdom in their chart that was clearly showing them what their North Star was. In human design, we call it the incarnation cross, but I like to say the North Star, which is the direction that your energy is trying to draw you towards in everything that you do. So that means that you look beyond a job title or a specific career or an industry you have to work in, but you look at what do any of those have to encompass. And so for me, in my North Star, that is this element of me where I have to deeply penetrate people through my messages to assist them in their transformation. And so it's no surprise that most of my clients, the feedback that I get is I'm a truth teller, and they come to me for the truth. And sometimes the truth is not easy to hear, as we know, but that sometimes truth can shock you into taking action in an aligned way. And then another area for me was about my mind and my belief system and how I did self-care. And so when I think about my own wisdom that was gained from that, my self-care came here from understanding that my cognitive mind did not need to be overloaded with information for me to have success, for me to create impact. in actual fact, my mind needed space. So this is where my meditation practice became a really valuable tool. It's like, how can I have space so that I can have what I believe is my direct connection to God, so that I can hear what I'm supposed to be guided by that is unique to me. And whereas in my wounds season, I was like, okay, how do I get more knowledge, more information? How do I read more? How do I learn more? How do I learn? Educate, educate, educate. Because again, that was the environment that I grew up in, was where typical immigrant children environments where education becomes this big thing that's essential for you to have success in your life. And so you go down that path, but then you start understanding that actually, the education can get me so much, knowledge can get me so much, but integrated knowledge that is then becoming wisdom, that's the true knowledge. And that is wisdom, right? Wisdom is just knowledge that has been deeply integrated that then becomes wisdom. So in my own wisdom, I learned that yes, I can learn, I can consume information, but what I do with that information, how I become an alchemist with that information, this is where my gifts are. So that means that when you're in this next season, the next season is about wealth. And wealth is when you take you take a step back and you go, okay, what are the wisdoms that I've gained from these wounds, from this experience, and how do I see that the world needs it? And I love how IKIGAI, which is the Japanese philosophy, and how they look at this. So IKIGAI shares that the world essentially needs your gifts, and you're living your life through using your gifts in the world. And so essentially you are not just going through a season, but you're creating a life that's based around what do you love to do and what does the world need. And it therefore becomes a way of life. And so in this season, I see that is important for so many of us is that we look at our life like through the Ikigai lens, and we start going, what does the world need? What am I good at? And how do I connect those together? And in a way that is therefore viable for me in terms of the energy exchange. So you might find that, I'm really, really good at communication skills. I'm really good at building community. I'm really good at creativity, creating products, whatever it is. I'm really good at ideation. You might look at the world and you go, and I definitely thought that the world needs more healing. And the world needs more healing inside out. So healing of the mind to create more inner peace, healing of the body to create more physical ease, healing of the heart to create more joy. This is how I see the world, right? So then you go, okay, the world needs that. So then you go, how do I bridge what I'm good at and what does the world need? And then what you realize is that you have come to that conclusion from your wounds, from your own experiences that were wounds, that were things that, used to hurt you, that you've healed from. And that you realize in that healing process, you've gathered some skills, knowledge, and obviously wisdom that you now share with the world. And so when you're in this space and you're literally creating from that wisdom, that's where the wealth is generated. Because this is your unique signature. It's your personal coding of what you can give value to the world that is unique to you from your embodied experience, from the wounds that you've integrated, alchemized, and turned into wisdom that can help somebody in a very unique way. Because when you're coming from that way, and you will know this from my content, is that you're not just sharing like textbook. You're sharing, okay, but even though this is perfect, like I think about when I'm working with a founder and they want to build in so many different areas. So they want to have their health, they want to have a successful business, but they also don't want to neglect their relationships. Well, I don't tell them, well, this is the textbook way of how you build a business. Like there are some very clear strategies of how you build a business. Like, for example, sell um, a million products of that are $1,000. That there are lots of strategies that are around sell a product that is small value or small cost and sell in volume. And there are strategies that are sell a high-end product and not have to sell more. These are all brilliant strategies. But I focus on saying, well, this is what I did when I went through this relationship and how it affected me and how I could have done differently and how I didn't trust, I didn't delegate, I didn't allow myself to fully receive. And this is the result of what it was for me. And the result for me was burnout, not once, but twice. So I give those examples so they can see, well, you can follow that path. But when I followed that path without being connected to my heart, this is how it showed up for me. I can share the examples of, this is what exercising this way, which is a strategy, exercise 3 times a week, doing one particular exercise, and then do other types of exercise this for the other days. And you're exercising essentially every single day. But this is what this did to my body. This is what it did to my cortisol. This is what it did to my adrenals. So I can share those from specific examples. And for me, what you're then getting is you're getting the individual that is really the person that you are supposed to guide, the people, the communities, the people in the world that you are deeply here to serve, but you're serving from the deepest integrated part of you. And that's what creates wealth. And just so you know, when I say wealth, I don't just mean in material wealth as in money. I do, of course, mean that, but I also mean in the wealth that you feel. Like when you feel wealth in your life, you actually feel rich in quality of life. So you feel peace of mind, you feel more joy, you experience more harmony, both personally and professionally. There are many people that are rich, but they don't feel wealthy. And so we obviously want to separate that. So hopefully I've given you this kind of clear insight as to how you can look at how you're going to move from these seasons, from wounds, which is a lot about the things that happened to me and, observing your consciousness when you're going through that, into understanding how to alchemize that into wisdom. What am I supposed to learn from this? What was this here to teach me? Into how can I use that to contribute to the world? And I want to leave you with some questions to deepen that. I want to get you to really reflect. So either pause the video or write this down or come back to it. But I want you to ask yourself, where am I still operating from my wounds? Now, clearly, you want to spend some time observing your wounds. So, you can ask yourself the question of what was the most painful experiences in your life to get to that. But where am I still operating from my wounds? The second question I would want you to reflect on is, what were my wounds here to teach me? Another way of saying that is, what was I supposed to learn from this? Yeah, so what was my wounds here to teach me? What was I supposed to learn from this? And this is where you really alchemize this and start really now moving into the overflow, which is really the Chiron in Taurus. And from that overflow, you start really looking at how you want to approach your life from overflow, from abundance, and from wealth. So I would love to hear your feedback on this video. What's showing up for you? Which season do you feel like you're energetically most aligned to? Are you still feeling like, oh, I'm in my wound era? Are you moving from that into your wisdom? Are you like, no, I am in my wealth era. I am following my codes of abundance. What's coming up for you? Share with me some examples or what feedback you have in terms of just how this hits you in the comments below. I always say that the best place to just get deep into how you really are going to use your energy way more intentionally is to sign up for my newsletter. I feel like there I can really just show you like how I'm integrating these lifestyle habits that allow you to be in overflow, to feel the abundance that you want in all areas of your life, so you can feel success, not just in one element, but in all aspects of life. And so you'll see the details of my newsletter in the description box. So do sign up for it. And if you feel that this is giving you value, please do give it a like and share it with others so that they can really feel that they can have this reflection too. And we can see more of us all being coded with this wisdom in the world. And I hope you've enjoyed it as much as I've enjoyed sharing it with you. So I'll see you on the next one. Take care.